us.
Great.
All right, we are live. Eric and I were here with some of the Hive Scum crew. They're excited to be here. Just look at their smiling faces. Steve Gage, nice to have you here. Look at those sincere smiles.
I think they'd be more excited if you weren't breaking up so much, Adam.
Yeah, my
That's
breaking
true.
up pretty badly.
Yes.
And
And as the host of the show,
That's
I take
bad.
a little offense.
Yeah, that's not great.
It's not amazing.
but
It's not amazing.
We're here to hear them talk, not us. So it's gonna be fine.
Yeah, I just won't say anything, and I'll be here frozen.
perfect.
That would be really good.
Would be great.
That would be really good. Well, with that in mind, to not belabor this, I'm gonna start the actual recording session. So, yeah, it's gonna be so cool for us.
Yeah, boys.
Right now, 3, 2,
This is so
1,
cool.
let's jam.
Wow, that was a
Hello,
really cool
everybody.
intro.
Yeah, no, Cowboy Bebop, kinda. Right? Well, hey everybody, and welcome to Dragged into Turbolasers, a miniature wargaming podcast from the people behind the blog Between the Bolter and Me. I'm your host, Eric Wire, and I'm here with my brother, Adam.
Hey, everybody.
And I'm excited that we're also joined with Gage and Steve from the Hive Scum fame. So famous. Hey, guys.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, everybody.
How are you doing? It's
Spectacular.
That's good. It somewhat distresses and saddens me that a Coke Zero isn't being snapped open.
I will go get one right now. If you give me 20 seconds, I will go get one.
You honestly don't have to, but
you probably should.
Okay.
We'll give you the copyright strike of the Coke Zero crack noise on your podcast from our podcast.
Cool. So
I can still
now
hear
that
you.
he's gone, Gage, do you have anything?
I can
to
still
say?
hear you.
Oh no! All is ruined.
Adam, when we were at the event,
yeah,
this is getting a little ahead of ourselves now, but when we were at the event, you did the wire. Day 2, you did the wire. Hey, everybody, to get everyone's attention.
Mm-hmm.
And I was behind you, and I went, "Hey, everybody!" And Evan elbowed me in the ribs, like, "Shut the fuck up." But it's just so habit.
The elder is talking.
That's
yeah,
great.
I was just like, "Oh well."
That's great.
Because it's like that's how we warm up on our pod. Sometimes we'll all just say, "Hey, everybody," to each other, and then we go, "Okay, the mics are recording, so now we can begin."
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, no, that's funny.
Forever in our hearts.
Doing a different way to introduce these podcasts.
You can't.
It kind of sucks because I then record a little intro thing afterwards before the music kicks in, and I say basically the same fucking shit. Once it was slightly different, but then I forgot what I did before and had no interest in recreating it. So now people can just listen to it twice.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
I like it.
But I guess
cool.
it's sick. I know it. We know it. But I guess with that said,
he's getting ready.
You're struggling there, Steve.
I was going to let you finish talking.
Well,
so considerate.
That is considerate. Well, I guess with all of that said,
come on.
Do it.
I
you
did.
Opened
it didn't pick it up.
It peaked the mic. It didn't get picked up.
Yeah.
All that for nothing.
So much effort. No real payoff. Well, I guess you need them XLR microphones, right?
That's it.
Well, here it is. Well, with that said, we can move on. A little bit dejected and saddened, but it's fine. Well, yeah, so I guess we wanted to have the both of you on the podcast today to talk about and reflect on the Vastarian event that happened a few weeks ago in Houston. And just, see what you think, chat about it. I you recently released an episode of Hive Scum chatting about it as well, which I would suggest other people to go and listen to. It was a fun conversation, and you can hear most of the other Hive Scum crew, Terry, jabbering on about this and that. I think Phil was absent, sadly, but
Yeah.
such is
It
life.
happens.
It does happen.
I wanted to, because I mean, we had to split in the middle of the last scenario, but
I was pretty
overall,
upset.
how did you guys think it went? That was my, like, the one thing I wanted to ask is
Yeah.
you guys covering all of these events and then never really like fully taking the reins over. How did you feel it went?
I think overall I was really happy with it. I think it went relatively smoothly. It is kind of a difficult thing having gone to a bunch of these things. Like, you always have these big ideals of like, how could it be done better, this and that. But then in as you're planning stuff, and how we even had Bill planned a lot of it, or did lots of the heavy lifting. But even in spite of that, like, it's still, I feel, creeps up on you, and you realize like all these things you perhaps wanted to do, like you didn't do any of it, or like you did a little of it, but then realize it's gonna be too hard, or so I don't know. But in the scheme of things, I feel it went very smoothly, and I think everyone like had a good time, and a lot of fun kind of narrative elements did ultimately end up happening. And
Yeah.
the thing I think I was most uncertain about was how like the last day and the last scenario and such would work out, because we didn't write up a scenario specifically for it. Like, we had some concepts and things we wanted to do, but how to get that into action and occur, we weren't entirely sure, particularly of not being sure if it was going to be done on the second day, who all would be there, who would
Right.
want to participate. And
Yeah.
yeah, but I think it ultimately worked pretty well, and despite being, it was pretty chaotic, but I think
Mm-hmm.
it still was fun, and a bunch of interesting things happened, and people creatively solved problems to push the narrative forward, even if there weren't like defined rules with that.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
the big thing that I was hoping would happen over the weekend, like, we had a rule set and everything, but I was hoping we would encourage people to kind of play the different games the way they wanted to play them, and if something cool came up, that they would go and sort of run with that and see where it took them. And I think that worked actually very well. And then also, as Eric touched on, the final scenario and whatnot, we had ideas of what we wanted to happen, but we didn't want to like tell people you have to do this. So we had some sort of ideas and little cues for people that we would hope would get people thinking in different directions to try and sort of come up with a solution for like the unfolding problems on Vastarian.
The games I played were kind of what you were touching on, where it was, first game was like Nick and I, Modern Synthesis and I, were trying to figure out like how do we do this again, like really getting our sea legs, and just completely blanking on like multiple rules, and it didn't take away from it whatsoever. Second game being like, okay, there's more rules to this, let's add them on, let's bolt them on, get to it. But then I'm like listening to a table next to me where they're just like, yeah, sure, fours, whatever, fours, who cares? Yeah. And then that was
Compare
like
that to the game of like no rules, where it was just two people telling a story.
yes, yeah, it was there was everywhere it was a different vibe, and it was like kind of like that rule zero for like Commander or something, where people would sit down, they're like, all right, so what do you want to do? Do you want to Do you even want to look at
Yeah.
your warband sheet or not?
Well, yeah, so we've been to a number of like Inq28 events and such, and one of the things that became pretty clear through most of them was everyone there is coming from sort of a different position, and they have a different idea of what they are going to have fun with in terms of like playing games, etc., or even like the number of games they would want to play. So we didn't necessarily want to say like, all right, you're playing 4 fucking games today, you're gonna fucking like it, like let's go. We didn't really want that, because it's not like you're playing a 40k tournament or whatever where it's like you have to finish each game in like 2 hours and then you have 5 minutes to prepare for the next game or whatever. That's not really very fun.
Pairings or anything.
Well,
And
I think that's like what made the final round so great was you guys were like, yeah, play a game, just start playing on the tables, and then it'll just, we'll figure it out. And then, like, I played a game with Gage, Cole, and Grant.
Mm-hmm.
Evan was in
And
that
there
one.
was someone else. Was he?
Yeah, the last one was you, me, Evan, and Grant.
Oh, yeah, because me and Evan made a pact that he betrayed.
Yeah.
And we're just like fighting in our little thing, and then people are fighting on other boards, and then we just kind of made our way to an elevator that brought us to a different place, and that it brings us out, shoots us out, and there's another battle happening that we're just kind of jumping into, and just the story is evolving of us escaping from this facility.
Pleased at how that worked, because like Bill had put a lot of thought into like each of the boards and kind of how they connected to each other, and that I don't think was super apparent on the first day with the different scenarios, but I'm happy in the final day, in an effort to get everyone playing and engaging and sort of heading towards the lighthouse board and that spectacle. I'm glad we were able to pool them together and link them in a way that people could get together and start playing some games. That opened a little bit unsure of, did we even want to make a rules packet? Did we want to just say, hey, use, and then from that point they can break it down and change it. But I think having something, and particularly I think having all the scenarios there, that I think really helped people continue to play games throughout the day, even if there wasn't like a rigid setting, like you have to play this, this, and this. I think that helped.
I played 6. I'm just out of focus. There we go. I played 6 games over the weekend, and I made the canon of my warband matter to me. But in the end, it had 0 impact on anything because they got fucking annihilated by the very last scenario. I had a guy with an iPad and a guy with a flamethrower left alive. Past that, it was like they technically didn't impact anything in the story. I had them route when we took the lunch break because I was like, okay, the lighthouse is like coming alive and there's like Eli's dropping these huge monsters down. I'm like, these guys don't want to be here. Like,
yeah, like, all right, we're out. The Emperor's
fight
cool.
a god with
Emperor's cool and all, but
yeah,
we have no agency here. Yeah, that's fun.
Did you guys want a? Because I know you said the last scenario was kind of loosey goosey, but narratively, did you want a resolution to anything? Like,
I don't even know what the resolution was.
Yeah, we could probably talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, we might as well talk about it. Like, we always thought that, like, we wanted all the leading up scenarios to have, like, some loose tie-in to, like, getting psychers for this beacon or getting materials that could be useful for the beacon or information to better activate it. Like, all of them to have some loose connection to this goal of creating this astropathic beacon and activating it. But we didn't have like super tied down things like if there are 15 psychers captured and
Right,
given
right.
to it, then it will work or something. But we wanted to collect information just to sort of get a general sense of what was happening, to then use that in like a games master sense to like shift things if something like pops out, like, oh, this is interesting, we could do it. But we always sort of envision that eventually, once uh the thing was activated, a bunch of gribbly horrible demons were going to show up, kind of regardless
Hmm.
of how successful or unsuccessful. Like, maybe depending on what they do, maybe there'd be a few less demons or this or that, but the demons were going to show up some way. And we wanted a bunch of elements that would, like, we had wanted to make sure the Arvis lighter was on the lighthouse board, and we wanted like, initially we thought maybe we would have one of Lunax's Grey Knights kind of teleport in, um, and then just get immediately annihilated. Um,
You had
but
mentioned that in passing, and I thought that was very cool because everyone's guy is just a piece of shit, like
yeah,
Hiver essentially.
and so we ended up using, since Shane had to leave, we ended up using one of Johnny's Inquisitors, but as a way to like to to get people to think and acknowledge, like, oh, maybe the way to handle these demons shouldn't be like, how many sixes do I need to roll,
Right.
and like think more in a role playing session. So we wanted to show like something that was particularly powerful, and then just like immediately kind of get fucked. To
Yeah.
make people think like, okay, well, my auto guns and or even this plasma pistol I have, like, probably isn't the way to approach these like earth-shattering cosmic horrors. And we didn't have like, this is what they need to do to like resolve the issue, but we hoped like, oh, like, there's like the Arvis lighter there. Maybe someone wants to crash it into the Fresnel lens, or we have a bunch of these um Mechanicum people over in this little area. Maybe they can go and try to liaison with them and see if there's a way they could shut it off or
Right,
focus
right.
or something. And we just wanted people to be creative, because we knew if we'd come up with a super detailed thing, people just probably wouldn't do it. Or, but mainly that there were so many creative people there with their own stories leading up to that point, that there would people would have a good idea or something to approach it.
Hmm.
Um, and that's what we were hoping for, and I think it worked pretty well. Um, to the point that, um, and this stuff will eventually be on the blog. Like, we're kind of slow pulling together pictures and writing captions and stuff, but eventually there will be a post about day 3, and probably some more narrative stuff, like storytelling stuff, explaining what happened. But ultimately, um, a lot of the psychers and saints that were still alive, uh, all kind of teleported up to the lens, and then I don't. I guess they essentially tried to pool their psychic might to try to stop
Banish.
or banish the
Hmm.
demon stuff. Um, and that was something we kind of like, hey, everybody, like, how do we want to handle this? Does anyone? And that was sort of the conclusion that people wanted to do. And Jimmy had a fun idea, like recognizing how many psychers were there and could teleport up there. He realized like we could assign each one of them one of the 13 tarot cards. And after assigning each of the psychers one of those cards, there were 3 left over, and thought like, it would be cool to sort of represent this psychic struggle, to like assign a tarot card to each psyker, the remaining ones to kind of the demonic incursion, and then with another tarot deck, shuffle them up and start revealing cards. For each one that's revealed, that psyker kind of gets obliterated or their
Right.
soul gets sucked out. But if
Very cool.
you can reveal all the demonic entity ones, they're able to sort of banish them. And so that's what we ultimately ended up happening. And as it happened, as each saint got killed, we had whoever saint it was, like on the spot, come up with like a little narrative description of what happened to them.
Hmm.
And eventually the demons were banished.
For now.
At what
So,
cost? Yeah.
yeah, like about maybe half the saints died.
Right. Right.
Oh, that's nothing.
Yeah, like
In the grand
whatever.
scheme of things.
Were they even saints?
Have you
But-
read a 40K book?
Yeah, it's fine. Everything's fine. And so, and to be all honestly, like exactly what happened, that's something we're still kind of considering. Like in my general thought is like they were able to banish the major demonic incursion, but like the warp material universe sort of connection is still pretty thin there, and like it still isn't in a stable good place, but
Hmm.
so maybe more can happen there,
Yeah.
such
I
as
mean,
inquisitors coming down and
the
eradicating the planet.
open-endedness of how it was resolved can Vastarian 2 Electric Boogaloo next year. It could be, you know what I mean? Like that's the
Yeah.
beauty of these things. But to, like you said, Jimmy came up with that on the spot for the tarot. Those are the best moments to like, oh, what if we did this? And everyone's like, yeah, hell yeah. And then looking back at it, you're like, this actually doesn't really make any sense of like why this would be how we resolved like a war game that has so many stats and things.
Yeah.
But we're gonna flip cards and that resolves it. And then you're like, it worked in the moment. Who cares? We told a
Because
cool
you just
story.
add the fluff.
Yeah, it's just a
Yeah,
narrative tool.
It seemed, it was sort of a narrative tool to somewhat randomize it, but then could use Martin's cool tarot cards and like
Right.
bringing it back to that and using them seemed fitting, and it took away like each people rolling dice and so forth. Like it was a nice, pretty simple solution that was fun, and just another way to use the tarot cards was cool. And Eli actually did like a tarot reading and drew like 3 cards and so forth, which he's gonna kind of write up the meaning kind of that at some point, because he had also done that before, or when he was considering like creating all the demons and such, and that sort of guided how he created some of them, and how they were connected to the Vastarian story and so forth. So I think that will be cool. But yeah, no, I think it was nice, and it seemed like one of those things that for a lot of these types of events, like even if there wasn't something super planned out to happen at the end, in most cases something fitting often would happen. Like that certainly happened in the Pilgrim game we went to. Like some unexpected die rolls like seemed like a perfect way to sort of end the thing.
Now, by comparison to say the Pilgrim event, would you say those are more rules heavy and rules centric to the games that they were playing?
I was
as
going to ask the
compared-
exact same thing.
So the Pilgrim thing was not rules heavy at all. No one there knew the rules. It's just like, hey, we're all getting together. Like we've played some manner of 40K or something before. Like it's been some years, so I don't really remember. Like let's just kind of roll stuff out and we'll see how it goes. I mean, some of the people there obviously knew stuff better than others, but it was not very rules focused at all.
Was it a
Sounds like
true,
every
ones-
event.
Curse of the
like
Alabaster.
true Blanche 4 up for everything?
Pretty much, yeah. Curse of the Alabaster
Yeah.
was straight Necromunda. It was even old Necromunda too, right?
Yeah, it was 90s Necromunda.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, largely because Jonathan Hartman, Shibboleth, he and his gaming group, at least at the time, they played Necromunda a lot, so they knew how to kind of game it and like the good things to do. So some people coming in like ourselves and Isaac, like we didn't play it that much, and all of our stuff was shit. And it like kind of didn't do quite as well, but so some of that is it depends a lot on just like who's running it and what their priorities
Right.
are. But being able to know that in advance through at least partially through a rules packet or something, I think can be helpful.
That I think if there had been a GM there, that would have helped a lot. Mainly with John Blanche's Chaos Lord that came in, like that was not very thematic.
Final game. Yeah, the final game where like everyone kind of was there around Isaac's like crashed spaceship, the Curse of the Alabaster. There was like a dramatic moment that John must have sent the one converted Forge World Horus model, like that big guy in Terminator armor. He was converted a bit and pretty cool. Like he dramatically teleported in to be like, "Oh God, what are we gonna do?" And then one of the people just like fucking obliterated him with their
Combi
4
plasmas
plasma
and
rifles in a single like turn or something, a single round of shooting just completely obliterated it. And it's just like games are
That's
about
cool.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So there, if
Yeah,
like there had been a
Adam was born
GM, like they could have been like, all
Just
right,
could've-
he just shrugged all that off, like it didn't matter,
Yeah.
and
yeah.
or
like
something.
like half of his face was vaporized, but
Right.
it didn't matter. Whatever.
It reveals his new health bar, and you've got to kill him again.
And now he has a demon head.
Yeah.
But just something, which I think the stuff we had run, like when Eli put all his demons down. I know Steve, you were kind of there with Isaac and attempting to like do things, and like you shot at him a little bit, and Eli kind of rolled with that and made it sort of apparent that like the stuff you were doing kind of wasn't that effective.
Yep.
But I thought that was fun.
I thought it was. Oh, go ahead, Steve.
It was just funny to see my two like crappy little guys trying to shoot their guns at this giant monster.
Was that the baby?
No, the baby was outside. He had this big thing with like shards shooting out of a giant maw, and it kept like digging its face into the concrete of the church and like scraping all the concrete and running at you and like running into walls. And
that was the hairy
most
butt
of our
monster?
No, the hairy butt monster was on the other side of the church eating all of Evan's guys.
Oh, okay.
Totally worked his way forward to.
Yeah. It was really cool, and then my psyker didn't want to do it anymore, so he teleported away, and then we had to get on the airplane.
Yeah. It was just a bit sad, but I'm glad like you were at least there to see a bunch of it and play in the first day and such. It was really nice to have both of you there.
The start of the second day scenario, like I was saying prior to recording, Brad was an excellent GM and was really role play heavy of like, okay, you see this guy in the hallway, like what do you do? Where it was like, yes, this is a war game, but technically it's like there's no real action for anything that we're about to do.
Yeah.
But that carried the weight for, like I said, for my canon for the whole day. So it was like once my guys were just like, I don't know, I have no reason to be here anymore. My psyker's captured by Tim's warband. Most of my guys got destroyed by Eli's Boston Dynamics dog. I was like, I got no reason. But going back to the demons, I thought it was really cool that Adam only kept putting fistfuls of demons around my warband specifically, and no one else's, and then would walk away and come back with more fists, just dropping models on my guys only.
They saw a kindred spirit.
Yeah.
I really liked when Gundam Mike kept teleporting people's models into the demons.
Yes,
That was
yeah.
really cool.
Once
I
again,
think
though,
that was also cool. Like everyone having like their own
Yeah,
rules that they just
exactly.
made up.
One that was one of the and part of the inspiration for the Vastarian setting was having played in two more time focused and well, I guess Nemo as well. I guess like I generally like the Mordheim system, and I like how the core rule book is pretty focused. There aren't that many war bands. They're more of a low fantasy setting, and it allows you to kind of explore that small setting within the larger Warhammer world. Like it would be neat to do something like that in 40K and not be so galaxy spanning with like and orcs are here and Tau are here and chaos is here, but like focus on the disgusting people there that I feel are always have been sort of an underpinning of the setting. And when you think about Warhammer, you think of this fascist regime and all these people and how their lives are awful. But like you don't really see that most of the time within the game. Like it's shiny ultramarines and
Right.
heroically killing orcs and whatnot, even though like I don't think that or it's not what I think of when I think of the setting.
Hmm.
Even if I'm thinking of Space Marines, it's not so noble.
Yeah. I like the bureaucracy aspect of 40K a lot. Like
Mm-hmm.
the guy sending a code off planet and then it gets mixed up by one number and then it completely ruins an entire like forward company's ability to react to an orc invasion.
Yeah,
That's
no, that
cool stuff.
yeah. And I think stuff like that is some of the more unique aspects of the setting, but I feel it's often somewhat lost in the day-to-day corporate games workshop, let's make money scheme.
Yeah, you really only get that stuff if you like read any of the books.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And who wants to do that?
Yeah, God, no. I mean, some of them are fun and good, but
I think it's inherently the scale of the game, though. It's harder to have a personal story when it's okay. Here's my 100 Ultramarines on the table versus your 100 Tau, where it's like you're not telling the story of every John Smith on the table. You're telling the story of the cool movements you did, and that's. I mean, I don't want to say Hive Scum is like a skirmish-based podcast, but it's like there's a reason we keep going back to skirmish games because
yeah.
it's more of what we get out of these events.
Well, and I think games struggled with like the balance of that concept for a while. Obviously, Rogue Trader and some of that stuff was like a lower model. They've slowly crept up with more and more models. Slowly crept up with more and more models. So it is like a larger scale models. So it is like a larger scale in that sense. But then when they try to write or their narrative stuff, they then seem very small as well. Like it's like,
Mhm.
oh, and they're talking about like the war on Cadia or something as and it's like and like 3 Valkyries flew in and
Right.
saved the planet. It just
Yeah.
that's not planetary warfare
Right. Right.
and it's like even your big army of 200 guardsmen is should still be insignificant in the scheme of like a planetary conflict, but
Mhm.
that's not how Games Workshop portrays it. I mean, Forge World often did a better job of that for some of their Horus Heresy stuff. So I don't know. It's a hard thing to do. I think Games Workshop often does it kind of poorly, but focusing on the skirmish level stuff, I think, is the best way to do it efficiently and have like a motivation to the things like you're doing and have a reason to do it.
Right. I mean, like, this is probably a jarring comparison, but like, think of Star Wars, right? Where you have episode 2, where technically it's about a whole war that's happening, but you still are only focusing on the major key players, or like a Rogue One. It's like, okay, we only really care about these people getting the plans, like Steve's saying, like they're going to go steal this one little thing that's actually going to affect these movies later on, but you still just need to convey that little moment.
And that's why that's the best movie out of all the Star Wars movies.
Backed.
Have you seen Andor? Like the
That,
series?
The show?
Yeah, the show.
No, but it falls into the same, like, I feel like that falls in with Rogue One very well.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, maybe it's a bit of a hot take, hyperbole, but like that was like the only good Star Wars thing ever.
I've heard that.
I mean, that's obviously some of the original trilogy were good, but
yeah.
After watching Andor and like how serious it is and how like much character development and stuff goes on, I then wanted to go like, wow, shit, I should watch Rogue One because it was like one of my favorite of the movies. And going back, like it pales in comparison. It's
Really?
I'll have to watch it then.
It's so much worse.
I mean, I think
But I think ultimately it's just the directors were given the freedom to actually do more and not cram some shit into an hour and a half, 2 hours, make sure it lines up with A New Hope, like the start of it. But this was kind of an opportunity like, hey, we're giving you more, you can do more. It doesn't have to be so rushed. And I feel they did it. And like, I wish they had more flexibility for Rogue One because I think they would have made it a much better movie than it ended up, which it still was pretty good, at least in terms of like Star Wars movies.
I mean, I think after years of trying to convince myself that Star Wars was still cool, Andor showed you that it could be cool, it could have nuanced storytelling, cool, interesting characters, and be worthwhile. I don't think I've ever seen that with any other Star Wars thing to this level.
Right.
Like, not even
in
close.
Some sense, it sort of parallels what 40K now is.
Yeah.
Like, it started out at like a good core and interesting elements, and then slowly got more commercialized into like the final trilogy being kind of less. And then having innumerable little series like The Mandalorian and some of that stuff, which ended up just being like cameos or ways to tie back to Luke Skywalker or something, and not actually telling interesting stories within an interesting universe.
And sell you a Furby, the New Year's Furby toy or whatever it'll be.
Cute.
Yeah, Grogu's cute. It's great. Yeah, but
and I feel 40K is another one of those things. It's a big universe, and there's lots of opportunity to tell nuanced, interesting stories, even if it is often not done. At least in GW's core thing is, it's easier for them to just produce the next mustache twirling villain and create some new stupid MacGuffin for people to battle over, but it not matter.
Right.
But then things like the Eisenhorn trilogy and some of like the better novels, like they're good because they shift away from that a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't read a ton of the books, but I mean the books that I've read are usually like one-offs, not tied to Space Marines. Like I read 15 Hours, I think is what it's called. It's about a 18-year-old that gets drafted into the Imperial Guard, and he gets sent to a planet that is not the correct planet due to some guy on Terra messing up, like sending out an order. And instead of going on like a easy escort mission, he goes to like an insanely, horribly overrun orc planet with like last few citadels guarding Prometheum on the planet, and it's his last throws being thrust into something that is way above his pay grade. It's called 15 Hours because the average lifespan of an Imperial Guard soldier on that planet in that war is 15 hours.
brutal.
Yes. Kind of cool.
Sounds fun.
I can understand why they can't sell products based off of a story like that, though.
100%.
And it also is like,
Which 15-hour Imperial Guard soldier will you play today?
yeah.
It's a cool scenario, though.
If Amazon's thing ever happens and they make something, like, it is something that'll be kind of hard to do, like, make something that people will want to watch and like a wider audience will enjoy, but still balances some of the more nihilistic and awful tendencies of the setting.
But I don't know. Do people really just want the like stereotypical thing that you get when you go to Amazon, or do you want something different that is going to break the mold? Which
I mean,
40K you would
yeah.
think would be
That's
the
the
ones to do
argument. People want the Marvel movie of Warhammer. They want to see Ultramarines and Chaos Marines smash, but like,
why? That sucks.
and then the rest of the movie industry is like, tell me a cool story, please, God. Like anything other than a Marvel movie. And like, I feel like the Inq28 scene, like especially now, it feels kind of cocky to call it a resurgence because I feel like we still haven't been here long enough to see it like that. But I think we're the people that are like, please give us a story. Like, we don't care. Like, I don't want the Marvel movie on the tabletop. Yes, dude. Where's our A24 movie of the scene or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, just so long as
all this stuff.
Oh, just so long as the Amazon show, if it ever happens, doesn't have Space Marines, I think we'll be fine.
And there's no way that would happen.
No way.
No, you can't tell a 40K story without them.
It's gonna be shiny blue boys the whole way through.
But, and I guess going back to Andor, like part of why it was good too was that all the other Star Wars series and such that have been made for Disney Plus are basically just Marvel bullshit. Like that type of feel good, like popcorn flick thing. Whereas this was the first thing that's like a serious thing talking about sort of the horrors of war, being a part of an insurgency and how like you will likely have to do immoral things for what you think is a good cause. And obviously those are things that are touched on in Rogue One, but this allows them to go a lot more in depth there and like have the characters explore and develop over time, which is just like in The Mandalorian, for example, like the Mandalorian, like he isn't even a character. Like there are no characters in those things, or they're just
caricature,
basic caricature archetypes doing what some might construe as cool things.
Yeah.
I don't know. First couple episodes were pretty cool.
Well,
but I think that's because of like the tone of a Western being like painted around it.
Like I certainly I liked a lot of aspects of it and enjoyed it. I just wish there was a bit more substance there. But I like all the nods to your Westerns and different classic films like the seven.
Uh-oh. Eric, no.
Eric might be.
All right, let's talk about something else now.
Some of the fun about this is cool. No.
Oh, there he's back.
He's back. You were gone.
It was Big Disney taking you out.
Right. Well, the Streamlabs that I'm looking, if it's anything to go by, like my stream has been, it's been bad. Like losing frames left and right.
Great.
Well,
I guess
fine.
Everybody here in the comments and chats, thanks for actually saying stuff. Sorry if the stream quality sucks. But
I think the audio we're getting is fine.
Yeah,
it'll be good recorded.
That's fine.
So good.
We're professionals here.
Bringing it back to Vastarian, what did you not like about it? I think that was like the bigger takeaways from the events we've done the things that we didn't like drove the next things we did more so than the things we did like.
I think most things I was quite happy with. Like, though admittedly, like particularly the last day, the final scenario, it was a bit more chaotic than I wanted it to be. I knew it was always going to be difficult, and it was like just so many people, hard to keep track of what was happening and so forth. And like, I'm glad we got people on to start playing games leading up to it, but because of that, there were all these additional threads going on. Like, how do you weave them together and have everyone like know what's happening and have agency to finish it? But I still think it ultimately worked fine, and it's like it it was always going to be challenging. I also kind of towards that end, I should have been put a little more effort into fine tuning some of the rules and stuff. Like, not that they were super important, but
Well, one of the things, we had a section at the end of the rule packet where like Iron Man like rules or whatever, like if you're interested you can include these too, and we should have made it more obvious that we probably weren't using that over the weekend, because like I played the first 2 games, didn't track any experience or anything like that, and then there were other people who were like, they were tracking everything, they were bringing up the stats, all their models and all this stuff, and it's like, oh shit, I thought we weren't even doing that. And so while I think including some of that stuff was fine and interesting, particularly if people want to continue playing, some of that certainly wasn't needed for this short like 2-day event, because not everyone's going to want to keep track of that. And so I don't know. We could have been a little more explicit about some of that.
Mix, though, because some people I think get a kick out of like
they do
the expansion of their
and
unit,
it's it can be kind of fun.
Yeah, but is this event where like I try to think of it as like, is there even downtime for leveling up or like stopping to get new gear and like spending your credits? Like,
well, so
you're on this planet on a time crunch.
I was under more of the impression like if you wanted to change the stats of some of your dudes because something cool happened, just do it. And if you want, like, if you think of some reason that said character should get some cool piece of equipment, they got it.
Right.
I feel if it was something that we planned to do this over a couple weekends or something, it would have been more important to have a granular thing. But when it's like a 1 to 2 day event, like getting that balance right is difficult, because like you don't need, or at least I don't think you need something as complex as Necromunda or Mordheim when like it's a day you're gonna play like 2 to 5 games. And in the same sense, like I didn't want it to be super damning that like, well, there's a chance like you're gonna lose literally everybody, like your leader and all this stuff first game, and like they're dead. Like, how do you get them back? Like, seems like for something that like you spent a while building up all these models, and like after this weekend you may never do anything with them again. Like, that seems stupid. It's not what Necromunda is, which the thought is like, oh, you're gonna play every weekend for a couple months. Like, in that case, like it makes sense that there's all this granular stuff and things that can change. So finding a balance there and making sure everyone understands it, I think will always be a challenging thing. But doing it again, like I would try to tighten it up a little bit more just so that people could have some of that, but everyone be a little bit more on the same page. But
I think it was pretty close.
Wasn't that important, because everyone, I think, was kind of had a very similar mindset and just excited to be there and have neat stuff happen. In something that isn't related to the actual games or whatever, I kind of wish on like the first day, the Friday or something, or at some point, I had just set up a thing and scheduled time to just take photos of people's war bands.
Hmm.
Like I never really did that, and I ended up still getting pictures of a lot of war bands, but like didn't get pictures of either of your war bands, and some of that stuff feel a bit bad about, and like
We're really
anything,
upset.
yeah,
I threw all my
yeah,
toys in the trash, so
Yeah.
don't worry about it.
that's good. But I guess as an effort to like, I want to try to document the stuff as well as possible to make it easier for onlookers to see like, oh, this is what's done, like how maybe I could approach it and so forth. And I want to honor the people who spent this money and took the time to come there and all those things. And that's a way to do it. And I know certainly at this our first venture into Inq28, I think there was more thought about it being somewhat of an elitist thing and not knowing how to get involved. And some of that was just, I think, because people had no idea what was done, how people approached it, or any of
Right.
that. So anything, and that I think has been something with between the Bolter and me has been doing kind of since we started at that, making efforts to document it in some way that we can to help break down some of those barriers.
Demystify it.
Yeah, yeah. And
I
so anything I can do to help with that, I would like to do.
I
'Cause-
think no matter the size of the event, you're gonna have that issue because I mean,
yeah.
even at NEMA, we talk about it. It's like, do we hire a photographer just to get the vibe of the event or anything? Just because the problem is you didn't think to take pictures of people's war bands because you were enjoying your time with your friends and enjoying the event.
Or even just looking at the warband.
Yeah,
Like,
anything,
I don't
anything.
even think about it.
Right, to do with it is because you're there in the moment and you're seeing all these people that
Mhm.
some you
One,
haven't ever met
yeah.
before or whatever. And
One towards that end, like I literally, like I didn't play any game solely. Like I pretty much was just being a photographer the whole time.
right,
I was able to like kind of GM or like play NPCs for a bunch of games. So still I feel involved
hmm
in at least a game of each of like kind of the core 3 games. But still I largely just was a photographer
right,
most of the time and still like couldn't do as much as I'd want to. So like particularly if you're like literally playing with your warband or your cult, like there's just not time.
right,
Like, and it's probably more important to like, yeah, be in the moment and enjoy hanging out with friends and people you don't see that often. So yeah, as you said, it's always going to be a bit of a challenge, but I think, I guess from what I've learned, being the more mindful of it throughout the process makes it easier to accomplish the things you want, get some of the photos or things you want, and still enjoy things.
right.
Yeah.
The remember Bill was reaching out. And he's like, "What did you learn from Brothers? Like, what was your biggest takeaway?" And I was like, "The 2-hour break we had for lunch was the most needed thing possible because it got everyone to chill out, talk to each other, and then when we came back to the game, it was like focus time. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there were multiple lunch breaks on both days. They were like relax, and then people going out to restaurants and the bar after was like super well needed because it was just like so many of these people haven't ever actually interacted other than
Mm-hmm.
fire emojis on Instagram or
That's
Well,
very true.
towards that end, I'm glad it was spread out over largely 3 days. Like it allowed
Mhm.
time for some breathing and to chat and do things, and not like on the Friday or whatever, like you need to start playing games now.
Right.
Um, I think helps. But in even that, like there's still always going to be the difficulty of when are people arriving, leaving, do things change, flights get canceled, stuff like that. So
Yeah.
well, with like, were there any things that you thought went particularly well, or things that if you were doing something like you would change, or stuff like for your next event, like things that you think would be good to change or
I think
build upon or something of that nature?
Steve is very of the mindset of like you were saying, getting people on the same page ahead of time and early.
Yeah.
Initially, I was like, probably more of the wire mindset, being like, we're just going to show up and we're going to roll dice and who cares? And Steve was very on the forefront for Brothers, being like, here's a packet for the players. They are going to follow it or we will break their necks. And I was like, okay, yeah. And it made Brothers good. And I think the packet for Vastarian was, I mean, especially with Martin art and everything, the layout was perfect. But I think that is like, I think that's the standard for events at this point. Like,
You need a packet.
You need a packet. It is the most important thing to get your point across to people. Like, even the one-page lore, I had no idea what the fuck a Circadrix Maledictum was prior to any of this, but that little blurb was like, okay, cool. I'm now entirely invested, and now I have a starting point for modeling. I have a start point for the story of my guys, and now I can have something to convey this vehicle to people at the event. So I think anyone listening or anything, that's the most important part.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad we did it. And throughout the process of building up to it, we tried to use the blog as a way to post things showing like, hey, this is a potential warband with using different rules sets, like, and how you might be able to modify them to represent this, or like, here's a potential scenario, like we're gonna play at Adepticon, and just talking about the thought process throughout things, as well as slowly presenting lore or representing it and trying to, like, there was one post more of the event, like saying like, hey, this was the basic lore that you may have read a few times, but like, and now with that in mind, this is gonna be the basic premise of the actual event, and like building the speak in, like, to try to get people to start thinking about how their creation might fit within that. And I think any stuff leading up to it to try to get people more involved and engaged and thinking about it is helpful. But it's obviously like a lot of additional work, and it's sometimes hard to know how much it's doing and what it's affecting, but
yeah, I mean, we've been posting stuff about Vastarian on the blog for like, what, a year and a half or something? So,
but then that's also somewhat difficult, because anyone who's trying to get into it, then it's just like, there are like 50 posts.
It's a little different in your guys' shoes because there's a blog and a podcast behind it. But I think, just for event running in general, I think the point that you're making still stands. Just a blurb of lore is all that's necessary.
Yeah, just to get people thinking, and at least within the ballpark and framework of what this is going to be, I think it is very helpful.
And if someone's making a model or warband for your world, it's not too much to ask for them to read a page of lore.
Don't get me started. Don't get me fucking started.
It's not too much to ask, but it time and time again becomes that with people's schedules and whatnot.
I mean, just like fair. You give for anything, you give them, here is a page of what your constraints are, where you're supposed to be, like your head's supposed to be with a thing, and people are gonna not listen to it no matter what.
Yeah,
they'll either through negligence of not reading,
Mm-hmm.
They don't care and they still want to interject their ideas into your thing. Like it doesn't matter. So rule packet is important, and I think setting a tone is really cool and goes a really long way for getting most people in the ballpark of what you want to do.
Yeah.
But there's always going to be people that want to rattle the cage.
To that point, though, Grant's warband, which is arguably very against the grain of Vastarian,
Oh, yes. The
was
Thunder Warriors.
was probably one of my favorite additions of the whole weekend. Of them just kind of
rode
being
all over your guy.
and then dirt bikes just crushing my warband all weekend long.
No, yeah, I feel that was fun. I mean, I guess that sort of speaks to how like you can still create sort of fun and interesting things that may be unexpected that can still fit within something, but
Right.
having at least some narrative constraint, I think, is helpful and allows maybe people to be more creative than they may have otherwise been, or at least force them to try to think of some way they can get it to fit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the difference though, is like step to make it fit in like
Mm-hmm.
in a tasteful way.
Mm-hmm.
I think my only complaint from the weekend was how sick I got from eating the same food all all weekend long, to only my own fault, no one else's. But
I mean, it was in Houston.
Houston's
Yeah.
a weird
I think
place.
that's my one complaint.
yeah, it was that it was in Houston.
I mean, Texas's flag, the 1 star is a review, right?
Yeah, that's good, dude. It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good times. Good times.
Do you guys
Well,
have thoughts of part 2? Was this going to be an annual? You
my
taking a
guess is
break?
I'm not sure. Like we have still so much we want to pull together
Mhm.
about just recapping what has happened that I think will take some time.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I would like to keep doing stuff within the setting and keep pushing like what's happening now and so forth. Like I would like to keep doing stuff with that, but exactly what form that would take, I'm not entirely sure, but excited to see ultimately where it goes and
Yeah.
where our creativity leads us.
And maybe having like other like much say smaller like local events or even like role playing sessions or something involving inquisitors or like lots of different stuff could happen. It wouldn't necessarily have to be like 20 to 30 people coming together to do a thing because
Right.
It's unrealistic.
yeah, that's tough.
Yeah.
And
I-
yeah.
I have a question for you guys. Now, Hondius is canonically in the same setting as Vastarian, obviously. Same universe. It's not like it's 2 different parallel dimensions or anything. Now, Chris had explored with that a little bit. Did anyone else at the event dive into the Hondius like background?
I don't think so. Or not like specifically no, but I think it is kind of an interesting thing to do. And in some Isaac has always been kind of good about this. Like even though he's gone to a host of different Inq28 events and such, he often is at least partially focused that uses that like, oh, there's this new thing to do. Like I will explore some aspect of a project that I've been working on for a while, as opposed to like every time you're asked or invited to something, starting a completely new thing. And in some sense, Vastarian was also a way for us to keep developing and doing more with the cult we created for the Pilgrim thing. So I think more people considering that to like, hey, I could keep developing this Hondius thing and use it in other settings and such, I think is fun and is something that you could and should consider as a way to keep pushing some of your ideas and see where they go.
Yeah, I agree. I was at a point where I was so fed up looking at my models that I was like, I'm not even gonna build anything new. I'm just gonna bring my Hondius Warband if I can't do this, and then I'm just gonna keep that Inquisitor going through space, like visiting other planets through your events and such. But then I within the 24 hours, I ended up making an entire Warband and painting it. But
But because I think some of that could be cool, like particularly if, and I could see doing another thing in Vastarian, maybe having Inquisitors and stuff more involved in a second event because of like all the demonic shit. And then that, because there weren't many of those in this particular setting, and that was somewhat by device not wanting to just have everyone have their own Inquisitor with las cannons and shit. But they do certainly offer the opportunity for people to take that same character throughout different things and maybe even do sort of that Mordheim thing to like progressively get experience or something, but actually over the span of different 40K events and such, maybe even give you the opportunity to create the same model multiple times, but like different
oh yeah,
Well, I
periods
guess,
within
yeah,
their life.
related to
could be
that,
fun.
at least one of the characters from the Pilgrim event was in this event.
That's true.
And Eric wrote some stories and stuff kind of about how they got to this point. And interestingly, over all the games that I played, only one model was ever taken out of action throughout the whole thing, and they didn't die. And in the third game that I played, like, both Jimmy and Nick were like really trying to kill all of them, and they never did anything to any of them.
But yeah, so that's true. There was some narrative continuation there, and I think that can be fun. And part of it is just a way, like as they suggested, it with like Isaac and such. Like it can be fun, like continually having opportunities to keep developing ideas or concepts that you're interested in, and not completely reinventing the wheel each time. Obviously, that's not something like you have to do, but I think it's something that
Well, I know,
one could consider.
like, with our blog and stuff, there was a time, like, some of the years when we were blogging, it's like almost like every other week there was some new thing going on. It's like, oh, I should really make a model for this, I should make a model for that. And then it's like, it rapidly got to the point, at least for me, when it takes me a long time to make any models. Like, I then felt as if I was never even doing anything that I really
Right.
wanted to do. So then it was like, all right, we will try and continue to support other events and stuff, but we will try our hardest to figure out a way that whatever we're making kind of works into what we were already wanting to do. And like, I think that often can work pretty well.
I
in
thought
the same sense.
I
Yeah,
thought
go
of that
on.
idea for keeping it's same as you're saying. You have to keep a continuity with your own projects so it fits for everything. I thought the same thing for doing a Brothers Warband, being like, this is how Brothers can cross over into this.
Yeah.
But for I also was like, I could just continue my Hondius stuff, but for all of these events, I always end up picking the factions that are like the worst, the shittiest guys that all die. I'm like, well, there's no real continuity other than just sucking shit, so I can't really go on with that.
iPad lad.
iPad
Well, you
lad.
can like, yeah, they escaped. You could.
There you go. Yeah, iPad lad will be my new
yourself and-
Inquisitor.
Yeah.
You guys need to market a Between the Bolter and Me battle pass, and then you can have the continuity of your war bands through all of these events.
That's actually
I think that's a great concept.
That's a fun
Yeah.
idea, honestly. Well,
Like
so
every time you go to an event, you just keep leveling up. You keep getting gear, and it's like,
well, so the model that I
it's
made
not fair. I went to 4 different events to get.
I earned this. Also,
Yeah.
the little dark spirit model I made for Brothers of Prometheum, like that is a model that was sort of thought. I don't think they actually appeared in Vastarian, but it was the thought that they potentially could be like one of the different like informants and stuff in some of like the different scenarios and stuff. So I sort of imagine they will find their way throughout a lot of different things through time and space.
That was my intent, but
Yeah.
there are a slider was there.
That's the beauty of the warp. It's just, yep,
Mhm.
they're all connected.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. Well, I guess with that, we've been talking for a little more than an hour now. Maybe it's time we try to wrap this up. I guess with that said, do either of you have any like last things you'd like to say, things you'd like to plug, talk about, listen to Hive Scum, or buy
you
some of your merch?
You definitely don't have to do either of those things, but we would appreciate it. I don't know. We say it all the time. I think the beauty of these events, and especially what we wanted so much to do, and I know I was the one bullying our group chat about it, of posting the Brothers packet the same day we ran it, and then you guys posting the Vastarian thing a week later. I think that is so important to keep this moving, where people are like, oh, I just saw this, I want to run my own event, I want to steal something from the Brothers event or from Pilgrim because I saw it in White Dwarf, or I saw this on Between the Bolter and Me. Those utilities are just so important for people to run their own stuff. So people need to steal more packet stuff for their own events.
People are doing, and not be super nebulous, but have a way to go and see, like, get a better sense of how this connects with the wider hobby and what other people are doing. Yeah, I think it is important.
And then invite the Wire Brothers and the Hive Scum crew to your event.
Not if it's too far away, though.
Yeah. And preferably not in Houston ever again.
I mean, it's fun to go different places.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I think that's all we got. I think, listen to Hive Scum, I guess, if you want.
It's a good time.
It's fun to listen to.
Yeah,
it's a good time.
Or don't.
Just wait for the next 2 episodes. Should be great.
Next 2 episodes will be crazy.
Good to hear. Well, yeah, all right. Well, thank you both for taking the time to chat with us about this, and just for going to the Vastarian event at all. It was really fun to have you there. And it's always fun to chat.
Well, thank you for having us.
Anything you ever do for the rest of time.
All right. Yeah, well, thanks everybody, and talk to you again soon.
Bye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Awesome.
Very awesome. Very awesome.
Goodbye, everybody does not have the same ring.
But it could.
But it could.
I have lots of podcast stuff to edit now.
Yeah.
That's going to be my new sign off.
Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.
It's good. It's good.
The Hondia stuff was never posted anywhere, like the rule packet or anything, right?
I don't think so.
I never posted it.
We could probably
People
honestly
ask about it all the time.
We could probably honestly post it.
There's a chance
he might
put
have
it on his blog,
but he doesn't update that too regularly. We could honestly probably post it on our blog if you want us too. Because this was the first time we actually figured out how to go about and do all that. Well, one of the things, we didn't post the rules and the scenarios immediately after the event, because that was another thing. Like, we spent a bunch of time editing and improving them, but like after the event, it's like, all right, I want to read through all this stuff again and re-edit all the stuff. So we did a bunch of that.
What I did with Brothers of Prometheus too.
And
Steve, you uploaded 2 fixes after the fact?
Yeah. And then I redid it again and relaid it out. I would really like to go back and like have everyone look at it and be like, what can we make better to hand it, like to put this out for people?
Right.
yeah,
But it's in a pretty good spot right now for what it is.
well, yeah. So what we
You
put
always
up
find
now,
more shit to fix.
okay, yeah. We put out on the blog now, I think, is in a pretty good place. But again, it's something like I would not mind spending some more time, editing some of the stuff and like presenting it slightly better. But in some regards, it's also kind of like a snapshot of what was done at the time as well. So
yeah. I think that's more important.
yeah.
You know,
Purist.
if you were selling it as a hardcover bound copy, maybe I would put that much effort into it. But for an event that you invited your friends to, for people to look at for free, I think is
Yeah, I mean, that's very true.
Put it up as is.
Put more typos in. It doesn't matter.
That's
I
not
did think of one thing. I did think of one thing at Vastarian that was overlooked.
Yeah.
Start recording again.
And it was, you guys assigned the tarot cards to the boards, but the tarot cards corresponded to missions, but it wasn't the mission that you're playing on the board.
I don't know why it was done that way. Like, I feel Bill had a vision for how to use the tarot cards from the beginning, and I never got involved in it too much.
So the problem was,
blame Bill because he's not here.
Yeah, thanks, Bill.
I mean, I was there with Bill, and it's like, all right, these are the scenarios that can happen on these boards, and then now we need to figure out who's going to play on those boards. Like, all right, assign a new tarot card to each of these boards. And so, yeah, I feel it could have been slightly more clear and less confusing, but
it was only important for that first round.
Yeah.
Important.
It was so important that I got fucked up.
Yeah, I'm gonna write a hate piece now on the Patreon.
Yeah.
Like, you guys will have to pay $20 to see it.
The event was pretty cool, but like, it's kind of ruined
first
the
round.
whole
Really
thing.
fucked up the
tarot cards.
Yeah, kind of ruined the whole thing. Like, won't be coming back.
What did Dave say about it?
Like,
Dave, do you have any insight? Yeah, do you have any insight for us?
So we should honestly try and have him on the podcast to talk.
Yeah.
Like, I talked with him a bunch, and since he's been with Games Workshop for so long, and he has a very unique and interesting view on a lot of different things, and he knows so many different people and different things that have gone on in the hobby, more so than I feel most people have any idea of, particularly related to like Games Workshop and stuff in general. So I think that would be very interesting to have him talk about some of that stuff. And particularly because I think this was his first like Inq28 like event, when particularly he's like just been pretty prolific with in terms of like things that he's done, armies that he's painted, etc.
Right.
So yeah, I think that would be good to hear. We'll have to ask.
We're going through, hopefully everyone. I know Steve can get it done in probably a 5-hour period tops, but hopefully playing Inquisitor with Eric's Hobby Workshop for his channel.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm doing Genestealer Cult for Inquisitor, and I was looking for paint schemes, and I just Googled it and was going through, and I was like, oh, I really like this one, and I'm like saving the pictures, and I'm like, what even like website am I on? And it was Dave's personal blog of like,
That's so funny.
I was like, oh shit, of course, you know.
Well, I've
But
played
Nothing's
with
better than a growth flesh
What
tone.
scale are you using?
54.
Like 54.
Yeah.
Wait, we're making 54 guys for that?
That's what Eric wants.
So I should build the guy that I have new in box still?
Yes.
No, I'll put that Space Marine. Because I have that Horus I started working on. That's true scale, and he's like probably.
You still
he's
might
probably
need to
too
make
small.
him bigger.
You will, yeah. You probably will.
Are you going to the
When are we
studio
doing
Thursday?
that? Yeah.
I'll bring my Genestealer so you can see how big he is.
They're huge.
You want to just blow up one of those bolter jugging guys for me?
A huge,
Yeah,
fucking
like huge.
2-inch.
Yeah.
Oh, I have the fucking toy one.
A Joy
You
Toy.
think
There
that's
you
too
go.
big?
Yeah.
You think that's too
That
big?
might be a little big.
That's too big. That's too big.
Yeah.
That's too big,
Fuck.
I think.
Yeah, I don't even know what I do.
Yeah, I would.
I'll try and find an action figure and fuck with it.
Find the rules that you want first before.
Well, do you
Space Marines
want
are
like a
broken.
Space Marine?
I don't know.
Do you, because
Also,
we have
has this been revealed to the wider audience that this is happening? Because we're still streaming, I think.
Oh,
but I don't think anyone.
Whoops.
well,
no.
now it is.
I mean, it's not going to be on the podcast per se.
No, it's
but,
fine. No, it's fine.
like,
Because
four
we
people
have
may have
Eric,
heard.
you assembled Artemis, right? Like, I don't think we're
Yeah,
too
I-
precious with that, right?
Yeah, if someone wants Artemis.
Please don't send me your more. You guys have given me way too many things.
Yeah. We're
But
gonna
I
just
mean-
put the Wires as a sponsor of the pod in the studio, just because of the stuff
Yeah.
that's been given.
I mean, do you need? We have the two. I'll have to find them. The two like Death Cult assassins that Brian Nelson sculpted for that. We have them. We have the Demon Host. If you want the Demon Host, Eisenhorn's Demon Host.
Maybe.
I mean, of course I
we'll look
want
into
it, but
that.
I'm not going to take that from you.
Yeah.
What?
Well, we know your address.
Yeah, but you do want that stuff.
No, I don't. I don't want it. Please.
Before we end up with more of your collection, the
Oh, that's not sick.
going back to Dave,
Mhm.
I only had like brief kind of talks with him throughout it, and I was like, "Oh, like, how's your event been?" Because the second day I was talking to him,
Mm-hmm.
and he was like, "This is great." He goes, "It's just like, you know, I've played in a lot of narrative events." He goes, "But this one's just it's special, you know." And I'm like, "What does that mean?"
Yeah.
Because
that's
yeah,
cool.
it's special to me because all my friends are here. But like,
Mhm.
what does that mean in terms of like someone that like, for lack of a better term, of like your greatness career? You know what I mean? Like your
He has been was so intimately involved.
yeah,
in
yeah,
sort of the foundations, or at least the kind of '90s foundations of Games Workshop,
right.
establishing itself as like sort of the titan of the miniature wargaming community.
Like I can't even imagine just the little one-offs that would have happened back then for like
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean,
even playtesting.
I've been playing. At least once I played Kill Teams and like Warhammer with Dave. Like I think I even used his was it his Genestealer Cultist, or was either Genestealer Cultist of his that I used, or his whatever the new squats are called.
Zabotan.
That's it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Eric says or something as though he doesn't know everything about them.
Or something.
The
yeah.
Leagues
I
of
don't know anything
Votan.
about them.
Okay,
Wait,
but getting
so what,
back,
how
about all
big
I
is
know.
54 mil guy? Like, how tall is that?
Roughly
Is that like
twice the
Dreadnought
size
size?
of
well,
28.
you should just. We have a post on the blog about
No.
Eric assembling Artemis. Like, I think there are probably
Yeah.
pictures there.
Go back to 2001 where Eric was assembling this model.
I'm sure if I search between the Bolter and me, Artemis, it will come up. It does. Oh, he is pretty big.
Yeah, he's big.
Yeah,
But
shit.
what's particularly big
That
is his
Lunex
phone.
Dark Angel next to him is so sick.
Yeah, and he's like, and that's a big model. But
Was Shane gonna be there the whole time? I admittedly did not look at the Discord at all for anything past.
I'm
Here's the
not even
rules.
sure. I'm not sure if he had to leave earlier than he expected.
He had to leave because he had to go for a job interview.
I was just like talking to him. I thought he was just like a local.
He's
And
such a
like,
great
oh, this is
dude.
Shane. Have you seen his
He's
true
so
scale? And I'm
funny.
like, oh my god! I was like, I know all about your models.
All right, I
Yeah.
gotta find a human toy between now and 2 weeks from now. I think I can do it.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure you can.
I'm gonna make a servitor or like a flayed one. That'll be my guy, and I'll use any rules. I don't really care.
I'm using a Magus and a Pure Stream Gene Stealer. I might even have it. I'll go grab it just to show you.
But it's cool. I'd like to play more Inquisitor.
Did you
I think.
paint that Artemis?
No,
Of course you didn't.
it's exactly like that. How could I?
Did you pin
can
him to
sure
the
tell it
base?
was-
Yeah, you
I
had
think
to
so.
have.
Yeah. You can sure tell that model was sculpted by hand because nothing's symmetrical.
Mhm.
That's cool though. All right, Steve. So this is a regular. I don't care about quality, but just for size.
Uh-huh. I know the Gene Stealer. I'm familiar. Oh, that's really big.
Dang.
it's massive, but
It's pretty big.
it's cool.
He's pretty cool. I don't
He's
like
pretty
tentacle
cool.
face though.
I did not
Plastic
use
head only.
Yeah, I printed the tentacle face and I did not put it on. The bits for those models are incredibly expensive.
The bits?
Awful. You wouldn't even want it.
Correct.
In the advent of 3D printing,
Yeah.
I don't see why you wouldn't just 3D print stuff that looks better.
Right. I figured though, I was like, oh, I'll just grab because they have like a Magus staff. I was like, that's an iconic piece, right? And then I'll
Mhm.
3D print something and just keep the iconic piece on there. People are like $50 for this like arm. Like, no.
Well,
Why
you
would
should
I-
just use Eisenhorn's staff. That's iconic. We probably
for
have
my
it.
Gene Stealer cult guy to have.
Well, I mean, it's just a
It's just
skull.
fucking skull.
Yeah.
It's a skull with
Yeah.
so it's not.
Well, we'll look through what we have and see what we.
All right.
I mean, it would be nice for this shit to be used in something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, if you send it, it gets here in time, I'll paint it. I'll build it and I'll paint it.
Okay.
But I don't want it.
I mean,
This is-
obviously, how could anyone?
That head looks so crazy.
$65 and it could be yours.
That looks lead rot.
That looks terrible.
That's
That,
crazy.
yeah, that looks terrible. That's like, yes, I got some Play-Doh and like kind of pushed it generally into the shape of a Space Marine head.
I'm not
Oh
gonna
my
lie, I think I could
God.
sculpt that.
Yeah.
Pretty sure I could sculpt that.
I can't even find the Inquisitor staff I was talking
That's
It makes
about.
really
me think
bad.
of like the Angry
Ooh,
Marines.
I gotta
when
go to
he
bed. I gotta work
Yeah.
in the morning.
I have to
Yeah,
get up at 6
likewise.
tomorrow.
Yeah, I have to get up at 5:40 tomorrow to
That's
make sure I get all my shit.
Yeah, that makes
I
sense.
have you all beat. I have to be up in 4 hours.
Hell yeah.
That's nice. You're
Mhm.
winning.
You're
I'm
winning,
winning
at
here.
life. Yeah.
You're such a winner.
Yeah.
We're so proud of you.
Thank
Cool.
you guys so much.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us tonight and dealing with probably the awful stream quality. But yeah, so thanks everybody. Keep on enjoying the hobby.